Good evening. Our class today is going to be about API resources, Laravel resources, and also some other minor things that we have to take care of. Okay, what are the need for resources? So right now our apps just return whatever fields that are in the database. Let's take one of our controllers here. Basically, it returns like this property. Now let me open my post one. So we're having our project here. Let's do login, certification. I'll also log in here, show you. Okay, we have to run our app. I forgot to do that.
Hello, boss. Hello, sorry to cut you in. Actually, I missed that brief explanation about why we need resources. I really didn't get it very well.
Oh yeah, I haven't said it. I want to like bring it up and show you.
Okay, because I saw the code on your screen was kind of different from what I was seeing before, so that's why I was confused.
Okay. I haven't done any. Okay, I'm having an error here. What is this now? Connection. Okay. Exam controller. Okay. Let's send this to work now. Let's use the get property. Where did all these errors start coming from? Oh, Jesus. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with this code now. To work, and it's not work. Working before. Okay, so I was saying an API resource now returns data about the particular model. So we can see here in this data, like, let's see, let me expand this. In this data, if you go to our create function, you see where we return this as the new property, which is gotten from here. So it's just an instance of the newly created property. So that is what our API resource will help us to do. Instead of just passing exactly what is on the database table, we can actually format what we want to be shown to the developer, the front end developer. We can also add more fields. Well, let's take a simple example. And so how do we create an API resource? We use the simple artisan command, which is PHP artisan command. PHP artisan make resource. Name of our resource, we are going to be starting with property, so we call it property resource. So it's the naming convention that you name your resources with. So this should be small letter. Alright, our resource has been created right in our app HTTP and resources, property resource. Off the bat, if we input our property, it takes in the model. It takes in the model of the property and then returns something like this also. So now let's use it in practice. We can use it here. Let's see, get single property. Now to do this, all we just have to do is call it here, say new property, resource. Then you put in the name, you put in the property instance, which is this for us. See this. Now remember you have to import it, so we import it here using this guy. Now let's save and use it. Say get property, yeah. Should be ID of 1. So let's okay, not ID of 1. What's the ID of this guy? The ID is 3. So get property 3. Okay. Now you see it brings up the same thing. But in another order. The ID is first in this one. Now let me show you how this will be in action. So in our property resource, let me pause it. We are in this class now, so I think I can ask. Any issues so far? Like, did you get the explanation?
No issue presently. No issue at all. I get the explanation.
Okay, so what we have to do now to return our own formatted data is return an array of what we need. So and let's say this. The first thing we want is, we can still call the ID. How do we access something like this? The figure row. How do we access the fields of the model? We simply use this keyword, this arrowhead. This is, I think this is fat. It's called fat arrow, and this is fat arrowhead, and this is like arrowhead, normal slim arrowhead. You can call it. I think that's what I call them. So we access it with this and ID with the comma. Next thing we want is, let's see, what do we want? Let me go back to the postman. We need the name, the slot, the state. So let me copy this out, postman straight. Okay, changing this to that. So this will be this name. This will be this slug. This state. And this type. This so far we've not actually formatted it to our own standard. We've just been adding already what is there. Now we can do something for the created dates. Example, there is this be dates. Now let's format this simple create dates. I'm going to equate this to an array and say this one will be what we call it, created at human. Call this, let me say, this created at there's one function, it's human. Let me just get this for one of my projects. I don't remember. So it should open here. So something like this. Now we can test it simply by running this again. Now you see this brings our formatted response. same data and everything. But now if you come to our create date, you see that the created a human shows how long ago we created it, and then the normal created that in the DB. So there are many ways we can use this guy. And another thing I would like to show is using it for relationships. That is basically the user ID here. The user is instead of this user ID, you can actually show the instance of the user itself. That is true Laravel relationships. Now, up until now, we've not actually added the relationship, the property and user relationship to the property model. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and then come over to the model and property here, this public user and property, so it should be user public function return this what do you call it, belongs to the user. Then the user will say the user has many properties. So say this public function properties return this. So this should be has many. Properties. That's it for the relationship. So in the property class, we can actually in the property resource, we can actually say this user. Now if we run this again, you see that it returns the user instance with the same. Basically, this is the user that created this property. So you can see how helpful it is in the front end, where the front end personnel won't have to actually send another request to the backend just to get the details of the user that created this. In normal cases, that is actually what we will do. Query the database for the user ID that is passed in here. Instead of user ID, let's actually change this to just user. You can also do the same for updated at. Updated at is just whenever you update your property, that state also changes. Update dates. test it here. And yeah, it works just the same. Now let's talk about this. How we're actually passing these images. It shouldn't be this way. We actually want these images to be with our property because they are one and the same. They belong to the property side. So you see that in our model, our property model, we define this get image attributes here. Again, I'm sorry I did not explain this in the last class. So the get image attribute is just the generic Laravel convention for naming attributes, but you will not need to specify the get and the attributes, just whatever is in between. Adding it to our property resource, we can see here image or property image, whatever I want to name it. Then just call this images. So in case you don't know what this does, this just refers to the current property being passed, the current model being passed into this resource, and we are using property and we are passing in property into this resource. Therefore, it refers to this property. So every method inside here has access to it. So if we call this send, you see right here we have our images right after type. We have it here. So we will not need to put this here anymore. Let's remove that from our code. Because we specified it here. Now we can simply go here. Alright. There's nothing much. The next one is for user. I think I will just let you handle that one, but let's finish editing for properties here. Now we also have used it. Where was the editing update property? Okay, we didn't return anything in update property. It's not necessary. Delete property. Nope. Next time we used it is in create property. So right here, we'll call new property resource. New property. Now, anytime we create, let's create another example property. Let's see. Alright, create. Now here we can see the returns in the same format we specified. Okay. That's how it covers it for returning a single resource property. So we also have get all property. Like send here. I think I need to These are still in the old formats. Now let's use it here. Now for returning a collection, so this is called a collection, that is returning everything or more than one. It's called a collection. So returning a collection of property data. So we did that in get all properties. Returning a collection here, what we do is take this here and say we're not going to put the new here. Remember we use new, but we're not going to use it. We're going to say property resource. Then this double colon we say collection. Then in that collection method you put in the variable or the properties. Now let's test this again and run. Okay. I see one in the same format. The second one is also here. So they're very handy in formatting data. And for example, another thing we can use it for is, for example, if in our database we take in first name and last name, or first name, middle name and last name, you can simply do it here in our resource. You can specify something like a full name. It's kind of helpful here too. You can specify a full name by calling this first name and this last name. So I'm just using an example here. It's not, we don't have the first name and last name, but we could do that. Another thing we could pass is initials. Let's see. You can just get the first letter of the name. I'm just looking for something extra to add to this resource. So how do we get str? I think str split. Correct, it should bring out the first letter of the user. Okay, sorry. This should be in the user actually, but I'm doing it for the property name. I just saw that, but you can still test it nonetheless. Let's see, yeah, it works. It works and it works. So you can actually add this to your, because you create the user resource. You create the user resource and implement it every other place you're returning user. So yeah. Just comment this out. Okay. Now I want to copy. I want to just add a little postman configuration to help us. Yeah. So, how about you now? We've been logging in and copying the token and putting it into our authorization headers and all that. I'm putting it into these guys. So, Postman has a feature called environment variables, where you can set this token as a variable, and instead of copying it every time, you can just replace whatever is inside that variable, and it takes effect. Yeah. So let's quickly set up our Postman for better testing and development. Now, before I go into that, Kaz, is there any question?
Yeah, nothing much. I just wanted to be clear that when we are naming our resource, just like you said, following the naming convention,
Yeah.
like we name property resource, does it mean every time we are naming the resource, it has to carry the model name first, then we add resource to it?
Exactly. Always the model name and then the source.
Okay. How about in case where we have a model that actually serves about two tables, that has two tables in it, or somehow, and we want to just how do we like define a custom name in a resource? Can we do it? Can we define a custom name like another name entirely to target another table?
Give me an instance where a model will have two tables. Let me get
No.
a picture.
No. I know. No, I know. I think it's kind of difficult. It's not even possible for a model to actually have two tables. But we know in model we can define a table. A model name can actually be different from a table name. Like we will define a private table.
Of course. Yes, you can actually name it what you want. But these conventions in Laravel actually make it easier for your app to flow well. You won't have to. But if you name your table a particular kind of way, you won't be able to use. You'll be able to use example. Let me give this. Say, let me go to our property model. Say our users table now, or our properties table. Say our properties table was named something else, or housing properties and all that. And we are naming this function properties here. We'll have to simply specify the name of the table it's coming from.
Okay.
You see here, specify the foreign key. Okay, this one is about the key, but there's also something, you also add something called the tables variable here, protected table. You can specify your name of the table. Basically, it's that if you don't follow the naming conventions, your app will still work, but you have to add extra information for your Laravel to understand what it is.
Alright, thank you.
Any other question before we set up postman? Any other question?
I don't have any other question.
Alright. So we'll be creating our environment for this guy. So the top right, you'll see this environment side. Just click the eye and click add environment. You name it at the top here, call it I'll name this my own. Let's see. We can actually even add our base URL over here. So in this case our URL is this. Let's copy this. Then token. What's our current token now? What did we use? What did we use here? Okay. So to actually use these variables, first of all, you save the environment. You save your environment. Then in the top right corner, you look for your environment, property update. Now, if we go here, you can specify that token by saying open double curly braces, then select your token here. If we hover it, you see the same value we copied from before. Do Ctrl Z, you see it's the same. Do the same for get all property. I don't think get all property needs authentication, the public route. So we get property. Place it with token. Oh, sorry, double braces. If we test it here, it still works as it should. Now, another fun way to use this is specify it. You can specify it in our top folder. Instead of no auth, we just add Laravel token here. But instead of that, I think I will create a new folder here and add all our property request into that folder. Say property. Just copy this one by one. Okay. Now, in our property here, in our authorization type, just say bearer token and put in your token here. Now, in all our requests, just go to that same authorization, change it from bearer token to inherit from parents. Inherit from parents. Inherit. Make sure you save your requests. Let's test it now. Get properties or authenticated routes, and it still works. Now, just to show you that it's actually working, we're going to say no auth here and run this request again. See that it says unauthenticated. Let's go back to our properties. Change this back to bearer token. Save. So this will save us a lot of time, because we can, if we log in here, if we log in now and we have a new token, what we can do is edit our current environment, change this to this, and save. Now if we run get property again, sorry, let's save this. This has our get property. What header is the common units?
Yeah, I think the mistake is from the environment variable you just set. The current value is supposed to be the one you copied, or you posted it in the initial value.
Let's do that for both of them. Alright, thanks for the spot there. Okay. Yeah, it works. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else? We can take this step further. Saying, for example, we don't want to be like copying and pasting every time. We want to be setting this token field in our environment automatically. So we can do that with on this tab now in our login where we provide a token. You can do that in the test tab here. Now we are going to run a simple script that will copy the value from this guy and paste it into the token there. Now Postman has some handy snippets to help do this. So our steps are: find the data token value, and after finding it, paste it into the token variable field. So say get environment variable. So actually look for set an environment variable. We are going to be setting token, and the value is coming from, let's see, I think get a collection variable. Nope. What is trying to get from the response body JSON value check. Okay. So I don't think I'm getting what I'm looking for here. String. Let me just copy it from one of my other projects. got this from one of my other projects. It's basically the same thing. So what this checks is if our response, in our case, we're going to format it now. If the PM response.json, this keyword here gets whatever is inside our response. So we are checking if status is equal to success. Instead of this, we are going to check if success, which is our value here, is equals to true. So if it is true, it means the login was successful and therefore the token will be available. Now we'll do a PM set token and look for token. Remember, this returns whatever is here. So we are going to say data.token. So it goes into the data object and looks for token inside. Now to test this, what is our current value? Our current value is this. Now let's do a simple login again. This one is 8. Now here, wonderful, it changes it to 8. Alright, so this will help us a very long way because we will not have to be specifying, we will not have to be copying it again. After every login, the test works and we can do this property and it still works just like before. Alright, that's it for setting up postman. So this update user should be, let's leave it at bearer token because other authentication routes they don't need bearer token to work. Alright, that is it for this class. Did you get this setup? Did you get this postman setup?
Yes, I do, and I'll still watch it again to help you.
Alright, cool. So I gave a simple task here. Just create the resource for user. Add in these guys and also create initial for the username, for the user's name that comes in. And yeah, I think this is it for this class. Let's keep it short. So what else? I need to teach something else, something helpful. Error next on our list will be error handling. Error handling, I mean something like returning a perfect structure, our own structure of error response instead of what Laravel brings back for us. We are going to capture every possible error that can happen. So something like when you're not logged in. Let me give an example here. Say no more. When you're not logged in, so you're just seeing here a message unauthenticated. All I want to be seeing here is the success will be false. Then the message user has unauthenticated. Stuff like that. So yeah, we'll talk about error exception next class.
Alright.
That'll be all for today.
Thank you, man.